Greetings all! Today, we will be examining the relatively rare Psychic Fairy-type Pokemon Ralts, the Feeling Pokémon, its rare evolution Kirlia, the Emotion Pokémon, and their final, exceptionally rare evolutions Gardevoir, the Embrace Pokémon, and the Psychic Fighting-type Pokemon Gallade, the Blade Pokémon. While they might be a bit too emotional for some trainers to handle, that is what makes the members of the Ralts family special, and helps to separate them from other Psychic-type Pokemon greatly. Ralts possess small bodies with white fur that covers most of their form, with small, thin, fingerless hands and feet that are incredibly small and hidden beneath tail-like folds of skin that cover them. Their head is adorned by a green flap of skin that covers their head and obscures their large red eyes, leaving only their small mouth and nearly invisible nose exposed, with a pair of red, horn-like growths that jut out from the front and back of their head vertically. Their evolved form, Kirlia, possess a more humanoid form and have had the white fur that once covered most of their body split off onto a series of fleshy flaps that surround their mid and lower torso like skirts, flexing and flowing freely as if they were made out of paper. Their long, exposed legs have become green in color, while their once fingerless hands are now split into a pair of fingers so they can grasp objects more readily. The green covering of flesh that once covered their head has become much more hair-like in form, draping over the front of their face and to the sides like bangs, exposing their bright red eyes, and their horns have changed position to adorn the sides of their head, looking almost like ears in this state. Their primary, fully evolved form, Gardevoir, continue this trend and possess even more humanoid bodies, though white hair still covers their legs, belly, and chest area and face, with sprigs of white hair adorning the sides of their face. Their head skin has completely dissolved and been replaced with a thick mat of green-colored hair that swirls over their head in a gorgeous form, while their hands have split to have 3 fingers now. Their horns have moved down to their chest, closer to their heart, and their lower form is covered in an elegant-looking flap of skin that floats over them gracefully, extending from a skirt-like form as seen in Kirlia to something more akin to a dress. As Mega Gardevoir, their dress-like skin grows in volume and size to resemble something more akin to a ball gown, showing off their thin, elegant legs, while their entire body is covered in white hair, the white hair extensions on the sides of their head growing in size and length. Their limbs have devolved slightly, with only 2 fingers per hand, but their chest horns have fused together in the back to form a V-shaped structure on their front, with a vaguely heart-shaped form in the front, signifying a dramatic increase in their natural powers. Their alternative final evolution, Gallade, have an equally humanoid form, with their head, lower torso and legs being covered in white hair, possessing 3 toes on each foot and a bony girdle at their waist used as a guard against attacks to their stomach area. Their green fleshy crest has grown to become adorned with a blue crest of material that serves as a symbol of their male status and an attractor towards females, while, like Gardevoir, their red horns have moved down to adorn the front and back of their torso. While they retain 3 fingers on each hand, their elbows have grown tremendously to form a pair of bladed structures of hard bone and muscle, with which these creatures use to fight in close quarters. As Mega Gallade, their entire body becomes covered in white hair, with a zigzag mark separating their upper and lower torsos. Their head crest grows to form a tripart crest on their face, hair extensions form on the sides of their head, and they develop a long, flowing cape of flesh on their backs that helps them predict the motions of opponents in battle. Their arms have changed form as well, their elbow extensions growing longer and more blade-like in form, with patches of hardened, red bone sticking out near where they connect to their upper arms and along the jagged edge of their bladed elbows that grant them extra cutting power and force with their physical blows. The members of the Ralts family are unique among Psychic-type Pokemon in that their Psychic and even Fairy-type powers are completely derived from a single thing: emotions. These creatures possess a pair of external extrasensory organs on their body that resemble horns to a minor degree, and they are used by these creatures to sense the emotional energy given off by others, using their telepathic powers to read the minds of others and get a read off of them from their emotions alone. This power initially develops as a defense mechanism for these creatures, as they are very weak from the time of birth right up until they reach adulthood, and it further serves as their primary means of mental stability, as their capacity to sense emotions and react to them strongly has led them to become dependent on the emotions of others to understand their social environment and attitude. If their owners are happy, they are happy. If they are sad, they are sad, and so on and so forth. This can make them potentially volatile to work with as a result of this, and hard to take care of if one is constantly in a bad or otherwise depressive state of mind. But at the same time, this is often proved to be an incentive for those in these states, as seeing their own Pokemon in pain tends to help them get over their issues more readily and try and be better for the sake of their Pokemon. Even so, it is wise not to push these creatures to their emotional limits. Because their powers are fueled by their emotions, if in an extreme state of duress, these beasts can become capable of unleashing incredible devastation that few other psychic types can show, and can in turn become a lethal threat to whoever or whatever pushed them to the brink in the first place. Gallade are the only exception to this, as they are typically more headstrong and clear-headed, and can in fact use an opponent's emotional duress to their advantage, striking with critical strikes when their guard is down. As a result of their connection to emotions as a way of existing and defending themselves, Ralts, Kirlia, and Gardevoir can possess Synchronize and Trace as base abilities, while their advanced telepathic powers can also be strong enough in some cases to grant them access to the telepathy ability as a hidden ability. Gallade, on the other hand, because their emotional responses to situations tend to be more stilted and combat-oriented, instead have access to only the Steadfast ability as a base ability, with those with a particularly courageous mindset can possess Justified as a hidden ability. In terms of stats, in looking at Gardevoir and Gallade, it can be seen that their lithe frames offer them little in the way of physical defense and stamina, and while they are decently fast, they are not incredibly quick and agile compared to some other Pokemon of their type. However, their offensive stats and special defenses are another story, as their intense powers allow them to resist special attacks fairly readily, and while Gardevoir have incredibly high special offenses at their disposal, Gallade equally have strong physical offenses at their disposal, and hit just as hard with physical attacks as Gardevoir can hit with special attacks. As such, it can be said that Gardevoir have above average base special attack and special defense stats for a fully evolved Psychic-type Pokemon, and equally so along with their base speed stat for a fully evolved Fairy-type Pokemon. On the other hand, Gallade possess above average base attack and special defense stats for a fully evolved Psychic and Fighting-type Pokemon, and have the highest base special defense stat out of all non-legendary Fighting-type Pokemon, tied with Scrafty. As such, it is clear to see that, though somewhat frail to some degree or another, these creatures are impressive offensive fighters, and can more than prove to be a devastating force on the battlefield if allowed to let their emotions run wild. Ralts are among the weakest of Pokemon in terms of their stats and overall combat abilities, much more so than even Pokemon like Abra that can barely even defend themselves, and Ralts can scarcely attack at all for a portion of their early life. As such, they are extremely skittish towards others and rarely ever show their faces, relying on their extrasensory horns to sense the emotions of creatures around and approaching them, hiding if they detect even the slightest degree of hostility in them. If they detect something of a pleasant disposition, however, Ralts may be more receptive to revealing themselves, and if they do so, they will only approach the stranger if the sense of happiness and warmth continues to grow. Trainers that own Ralts have to be very careful of their personal mental state, because the biological functions of Ralts are completely linked to their emotional state. If you are happy, then your Ralts will be happy, and its body will grow warm to the touch. If you are sad, though, they too will be sad, and grow cold and even sickly. Exposure to too much negative emotions can lead these creatures to lose the ability to readily wield their psychic powers and lose control of their vital functions as their organs are shut down by the overwhelming emotions, which can lead to irreparable and potentially lethal damage to them if not treated immediately. Trainers that wish to help their Ralts grow up big and strong will have to take this into account, and do what they can to try and keep themselves happy and upbeat as much as they can, if only for the sake of the health of their Pokemon. Much as with their pre-evolved form, the health of Kirlia is very much dependent upon the emotional state they and their trainer are in, but the effects can be much more visually apparent in this state. Kirlia that are surrounded by happiness on a constant basis grow more luxurious fur on their bodies and become more beautiful and elegant in their appearances over time, almost always dancing in joy when they are in a good mood, especially on sunny mornings, their power overflowing them. Those that are otherwise constantly exposed to negative emotions will begin to look more drab and dark-colored, their fur losing its natural appearance and becoming more ruffled and unkempt in form, as they become more brooding and distant in their personality, eventually leading to sickness in them and death via total organ failure. This kind of damage is once again irreparable and must be taken into account at all times, if only for the sake of the health of Kirlia. Thankfully, while these creatures are still quite weak despite being in evolved form, their psychic powers have begun to develop further in step with their advanced brains, as these creatures gain the ability to see into the future by amplifying their psychic power through their horns and concentrating it into a point, opening up a tear in the dimensional fabric of space-time. This process does not go unnoticed, however, as the act of opening these dimensional tears allows materials from other worlds to appear as mirages, something that can be used to one's advantage to distract opponents, but should not be relied upon due to the uncertain nature of what will come out and whether or not the opposition will be fooled by it. Still, it grants these creatures a little bit of help when they need it, and can definitely prove to be a fun parlor trick to pull on those that are unsuspecting of their true power. Due to a genetic abnormality, Kirlia are actually able to evolve into two distinct evolutions, each with their own set of powers to share. If they are allowed to develop naturally and reach an adult stage of development through training and time alone, these creatures will eventually evolve into Gardevoir, and in doing so, their mindset and powers will finally fully mature and grant them access to their full host of psychic and fairy-type powers. For Kirlia, this change comes along with a great deal of mental maturity that causes them to lose access to certain moves more appropriate for their previously childlike demeanor, including Lucky Chant and Charm, having them replaced with Wish and Captivate, and additionally gaining access to the Healing Wish, Misty Terrain, and Moonblast moves. They become such strong psychics that they constantly use their power to levitate off of the ground and thus never feel the pull of gravity, which works out well for them biologically as their legs are quite thin and fragile. With this shift in combat abilities comes a shift in temperament as mentioned already, and these creatures become incredibly protective of their trainers, caring for their health and safety and doing what they can to ensure that no harm befalls them. This can make them more than a bit clingy, but they do so out of genuine care and affection for their owners and those they are naturally drawn to, even if this relationship is taken to the extremes in some cases. The fact that their extrasensory organs have been moved to their chest allows them to think more clearly and not be so readily affected by the emotions of those around them, which also helps them be more accurate with their ability to read the future. But in a metaphorical sense, putting them so close to their heart also makes them more willing to unleash their pent-up emotions against those that dare to harm them and those they care for. Those confronting one of these creatures should be careful about attacking their trainer directly, for if these Pokemon are pushed to the brink and feel that their trainer is in mortal danger, they will concentrate all of their power into a single point in space-time and will generate what seems to be a singularity of some sort, or at the very least a particle so dense that it generates a black hole. While this black hole will only last for a few moments, it is enough to completely eradicate whatever has put in danger the ones they care so deeply for, and in the end, it can be enough to extinguish the Gardevoir's life entirely if they are not careful. This incredible willingness to protect their trainer with their life makes Gardevoir some of the easiest Pokemon to closely bond to, placing trainers in a position of having to decide how to not only approach battling with them, but also their own lifestyle, depending upon how intimate the relationship between them and their Gardevoir becomes. It should further be noted that Gardevoir are one of the few Pokemon that are known to be capable of undergoing the process of Mega Evolution when they are in possession of a Gardevoirite. In this form, these creatures are able to turn their internal emotional power outward and unleash it in the form of Psychic and Fairy Force energy, the extrasensory horns changing to become a visual representation and physical manifestation of their hearts. While Mega Evolved, These creatures exude so much Fairy Force energy that even basic attacks are transformed into powerful Fairy-type moves, granting them access to the Pixelate ability. And the combination of emotional energy and their natural Fairy-type powers results in a moderate increase in their base attack, defense, and special defense stats, and a critical increase in their base special attack stat, granting them the highest base special defense stat out of all non-legendary Psychic-type Pokemon, and the highest base special attack and non-legendary base stat total out of all Fairy-type Pokemon. This might not do much to make their physical attributes significantly better, but it is still more than enough to make them an elegant and gorgeous, but still highly dangerous, force to be reckoned with on any battlefield. However, it is possible for Kirlia to take a completely different form in evolution if they have the right chromosomes. While female Kirlia can only ever evolve into Gardevoir, if a male Kirlia is exposed to the radiant energy of a Dawnstone, it can cause a mutation in their Y chromosome that results in them evolving instantly, transforming into the powerful Pokemon Gallade. In this state, these creatures receive many of the same stat boosts as seen in Gardevoir, but part of their power becomes stunted as their brains mostly lose the connection to the Fairy-type powers they once had, having the connection replaced with an indomitable fighting spirit, as they turn from Psychic Fairy types to Psychic Fighting types. In turn, they lose the ability to sense emotions the way they used to, their extrasensory organs instead altering themselves to be more attuned to reading the thoughts of opponents, so Gallade can more easily predict their next move in a fight. Moreover, their special powers become completely stunted, but their physical strength and attack power skyrockets, their EV yield changing from 2 in special attack to 3 in attack, and granting them access to incredible physical power that no other member of their family can hold a candle to. The development of a pair of extended blade-like structures on their elbows, made out of bone, allows these creatures to use powerful cutting strikes with their arms in close quarters, and despite their awkward-looking form, Gallade are masters at using these blades for battle, being just as skilled as the greatest of swordsmen. As a consequence of this, in comparison to Gardevoir, while they lose access to many of the moves observed in their alternate evolution, they gain access to the slash attack immediately upon evolving, and additionally can use the Leaf Blade, Night Slash, Leer, Quick Guard, Fury Cutter, Aerial Ace, Wide Guard, Swords Dance, Psycho Cut, Helping Hand, Feint, False Swipe, Protect, and Close Combat moves. Despite the fact that emotions no longer serve as their defining power source, Gallade still feel and respond to them strongly and share with Gardevoir a penchant for protecting their trainers deeply, doing what they can to defend the honor and virtues of their trainers no matter how powerful their opposition might be. They will strike viciously and rapidly without any warning or regard to their personal safety, and while this might put their life at risk, their advanced ability to detect and predict the emotions of opponents means that they can usually attack recklessly, while at the same time dodging whatever blows might come their way. Despite this ferocious battle nature, these creatures are still honorable fighters and show their opponents proper respect, battling cleanly at all times and avoiding dirty tactics to win, no matter how readily they might be available to take advantage of, making them a perfect choice for those that are looking to give a fair fight no matter what the odds against them might be. It is lastly noted that, much like Gardevoir, Gallade is also one of the few Pokemon that are capable of undergoing the process of Mega Evolution when they are in possession of a Galladite. In this form, these creatures take on a much more regal appearance, and the head crest and cape-like protrusion on their form grow in size and form, becoming extensions of their extrasensory organs that allow them to detect minute changes in air currents and in turn use them to rapidly predict the motions and attacks an opponent is about to make, allowing them to react to these attacks much more quickly than normal. The bony extensions on their arms grow in sharpness as pieces of red bladed bone poke through their skin, and additionally are infused with psychic energy to the point of producing energetic after images as they move through the air, which can be actively shaped and molded by their psychic powers to take on any form they desire, enabling them to adapt to opponents of all types who may or may not otherwise have unique hides or armors with specific points of weakness along their body. They can further alter their armature blades to harden and spread out in a shield pattern almost instantly, enabling these Pokemon to parry blows that come their way fluidly before counterattacking and reducing their target to weakened shreds of their former self. This complements their fighting style well, for with their senses heightened, these beasts fight in a rapid, dual-wielding style that takes advantage of the upgraded weaponry and gives off such a powerful vibe that it can intimidate opponents and weaken their resolve even before the first blow connects, while Mega Gallade remain completely unflinching towards all attacks that come at them, granting them access to inner focus as an ability, and overall making them a fearsome force to contend with. In turn, these advanced combat features act to considerably increase their base defense and speed stats and critically increase their base attack stat, additionally obtaining the highest base attack stat out of all non-legendary Psychic-type Pokemon and rendering them terrific fighters whose might is to never be underestimated in combat. Though they might start out fairly frail and take some considerable dedication to work with, the members of the Ralts family are powerful creatures that can more than use the power of their emotions to devastate those that dare to harm them and those they care for. You might find yourself in a bit of a pickle in trying to choose which final evolution you want depending on the sex of your Pokemon, but with both strong physical and special offenses at your disposal to work with, you really can't go bad with either choice in the end. Just make sure that, no matter what choice you do make, you are prepared for the worst of situations and the responses that your Pokemon will likely have if you yourself are placed in mortal danger. These creatures will protect you with their lives no matter what the cost, but while Gallade will defend you with their blades as a trusty swordsman would, Gardevoir can be much more unpredictable and dangerous. After all, it's not every day that you see a Pokemon expend its life just to create a weapon of destruction that will likely take the lives of countless organisms down with them if it means saving just one.